I spent so long trying to figure out ways to not have to think about my hair. So, I spent all of high school and the beginning of college with my hair in braids. Because braids, you get them. I mean, you spend 6 hours the day you get them, but then you spend a month having to do nothing. And it's amazing. And I can just roll out of bed and go wherever I want to. My hair is already done. I don't have to think about it.
Decide how I'm going to start off season 2. But hello everyone, welcome to the My Call Fernanda Project season 2, spring of 2020. We're here, season 2 opener with Jordan Boatman, an infamous actress, and a dear friend. Jordan, can you introduce yourself?
Okay. My name is Jordan Boatman. I'm 23. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I am an African American woman, obviously.
Incredible.
She, her, hers.
Yes. Jordan, where did you grow up?
I grew up for the most part in Ossining, New York. I was born in Los Angeles, but we moved, and I grew up in Ossining.
Did you like it?
I did. I mean, I think no kid likes where they're growing up when they're growing up. Everybody wishes they were somewhere, I feel like I have 3 younger siblings, and they are right now always talking about, like, it's so boring and there's nothing to do. But I think everybody feels that way when you're 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. But I think it was a great place to grow up. And at the time, I made great friends, and I loved being close to the city, but not in the city. It was great. It was a good place to grow up. Yeah.
Lovely. And then can you explain, like, the demographics of Ossining a little bit?
Well, so it's pretty, I always felt like it was pretty diverse, especially considering or compared to the rest of Westchester. I think Westchester has a reputation for being a largely white area, but that's also because it has a reputation for being a largely wealthy area. So people don't expect there to be people of color when you're thinking of areas like that. But Ossining specifically is pretty diverse. We have a large Hispanic population, and a very large Hispanic population, and a large African American population as well. I mean, there's definitely more white people, but I always felt like there were people like me around. I could look around and see a brown person or a black person, and like I think when I was younger, I think as I got into high school, there was definitely more of a meld. When you're younger, I mean, for the way that our elementary schools worked is you're in one, and most elementary schools, I think, you're in one class. And so it's just the people in those classes. And when it was at that point in my upbringing, it was mainly white people in my class. I mean, there would be, maybe 2 black people and a few Hispanic people, but if it was a class of 25, it was 18 white people. I mean, I got the Oreo comments and things like that.
Oreo comments
being, somebody saying that I'm an Oreo, which would be white on the inside, black on the outside, which is always a term that I've really struggled with, and I think that people have different opinions about it. For me, it's just because white on the inside, black on the outside implies that, because for what it was because I speak with proper grammar most of the time, or try to. And, because I live in a certain place that makes me white. And I'm like, well, why can't I speak with proper grammar and still be black? Because the assumption is that black people don't speak correctly, or black people aren't smart, black people aren't. And I'm like, okay. So I never took kindly to that nomenclature. And I think that some people recognize it as just a joke or just playing around. And I think that terminology like that should be taken for what it is, which is a degradation of my culture and of who I am, because I'm black. So I am as smart as I am as a black woman. I speak the way I am as a black woman. There is no white inside. It just doesn't make sense to me. And even as a kid, I was like, that doesn't sound right. Does that sound right to you? And I remember one time I had some friends over, and at my house, and we were all on we had a trampoline at the time. We were all sitting on the trampoline, and one of my friends was like, "Oh, you talk like a white person." I was like, "Well, yeah, but let's. Why do you think that I talk like a white person? How does a white person speak? How does a quote unquote black person, how do we speak? That I'm supposed to be speaking in a different way? Am I supposed to, And then, of course, when you confront people with their own incorrect opinions,
ignorance.
Yes, with their own ignorance, they're unable to. My friend was like, "Well, that's you know what I mean." I'm like, "Well, no, but what do you mean? If you know what you mean, you should be able to articulate it to me and speak it through and see the truth or lack of truth in what you're saying."
Tell me the 2 professional plays you've been in.
Sure. I was in a play called The Niceties by Eleanor Burgess at the Huntington Theater, Manhattan Theater Club, McCarter Theater Center, and the Geffen Playhouse in Los Angeles. I have to get
Incredible.
all those. Thank you. And then right now I am in Medea at the Brooklyn Academy of Music.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in this concept of typecasting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to understand your perspective of typecasting and maybe how that ties into or weeds into your growing up and these comments that were said to you about the way you speak.
Mm-hmm.
And even deeper, like, because of that, do you feel a pressure to play up your blackness or play down your blackness to get certain roles?
Yeah. I look at acting and auditioning and going in for roles, and that I think I have a fairly pragmatic stance about it. I look at it as I'm looking at a character, and any character that I play is going to be black. There's nothing that I can do about that. That's just baseline. Any character that I'm playing is a black person. So for me, it's less about playing up or playing down my blackness, because I don't know that I would know how to do that. It's just I really just focus on who this person is that is written on this piece of paper, and how do I bring this person to life. Whether or not they're black is a given. And the question of how black is someone or how black is this character would just, that really goes into what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to be black? So, and it goes back to the question of how I speak, I guess, is, does this person, and how a character speaks is written on the page. So, but if they have a lack of correct grammar, does that make them blacker? I just don't think about it that way. So I'm more focused when I look at a character on who the person is and how, what stories they have to tell and where they've come from. When I think about playing it up or playing it down, if you're looking at a character who's more quote unquote ghetto, does that make her blacker because is she from a low income area and that makes her blacker? Like, I don't, that question is hard for me to tackle, I think. And it is just easier and better. I think people are developed by their experiences, by who they are. I was born black, but that's only, that's defined by this society, by this country, by, it has so many things weighing on it that are out of my control. But I'm a black woman first and foremost all the time, because that's the first thing that walks into the room. When I walk into the room, you see a black person. I feel like, especially in this country, in this political climate, the first thing that walks in when I walk in a room is my blackness. I think that's what people see.
Okay, tell me really quickly about, like, one, what the play is about, and then tell me what it was like being the only black person in the room.
Okay. The Niceties is it's a play about 2 women, a history teacher and her student, and the student writes a paper saying that the American Revolution wouldn't have been possible without black people. It was only successful because of the slaves, because of black people. And the history teacher disagrees, and they then get into a larger conversation, one about that paper, but 2 about black history and its role in American culture and American history, and black people and the role that they've played themselves. And then, it gets into a heated conversation at some points. It was also my first professional play. And we started rehearsal for that in August. So it was also, on top of, one, I didn't know that I'd be the only black person in the room going in, but I did know that I was probably going to be the youngest person in the room, the greenest person in the room.
Greenest.
Green, being that it was
Fresh.
green, fresh and right out of school and not having done any other professional productions. So there was that. And then you get there, and of course, I think most Black people have this, you walk into a room and you look around and you're like, oh, okay. Cool. Just me. That's fine. I mean, and you're used to it. Like, I'm used to it.
Yes.
I've been the only Black person in the room many times, and I will be many times again. But you're aware. And then you're especially aware when you're talking about a play that is focused on the role of Black people in this country, and it's a conversation that's not had, and publicly that's not had as vocally and as loudly as these two women were able to have this conversation. My director, Kimberly Senior, was very good at not making it feel like it was all weighing on me, like I had,
Kimberly's
the weight of
white or Black?
Kimberly is white, so Kimberly's white.
She's director.
She's the director of the Niceties.
Who wrote it?
Eleanor Burgess.
A white person or a Black?
Yes, she's Jewish.
That's really interesting.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I mean, and people are always surprised that it wasn't written by a Black person, because she did such a wonderful job articulating both sides of the argument for my character Zoe and for Lisa Baines' character Janine, the love of my life, Lisa Baines. And so I was in this room with Kimberly Senior, who is this hugely accomplished director, and Lisa Baines, who is this hugely accomplished actress, and Eleanor Burgess, who I just think is a genius. I mean, she wrote this fantastic play in which Jordan, could feel so many of my opinions being shared.
Okay, so what's that like, right? So a white person wrote this play,
mm-hmm.
and you being Jordan, right?
Mm-hmm.
You felt like you could feel so much of what she was saying. Like,
mm-hmm.
was that must be kind of interesting that, like, she can articulate your feelings.
I mean, so Eleanor is a historian. She was a history teacher. And so it just comes from knowledge. I mean, she has so much knowledge. She's so smart. I cannot stress that enough. And so I learned so much. I mean, the premise of Zoe, who was my character in the Niceties, the premise of her argument is that because Black people at the time were obviously enslaved and so oppressed, it allowed for there to be a division. And I also this was a year ago that I did this play, so it's been a little bit of time since I've had all of the facts on the forefront of my brain. But basically, at the time, white people, even poor white people, were able to feel like they were above someone. So they didn't feel like they had to revolt. The reason that the revolution was able to be successful was because white people were able to band together against this other entity. And in any other situation, if there hadn't been the slaves there, the poor white people would have turned around and been like, "Oh, wait, hold on. This isn't great for us because we're still down here without any money. We're still disenfranchised." But because there were, this is a layman's term abbreviation of the premise, but because there were Black people, because the slaves were there, they were still able to have some form of hierarchy. They were not at the bottom of the food chain. And so it was able to just facilitate a little bit more peace between, the white factions of society at that time. When I was starting that play, when I was doing rehearsal, I remember I went to a doctor's appointment, and my doctor was asking me about the play, and I told her, and I said, that Black people are the reason for the success of the American Revolution. And she said, "Oh, you mean the Civil War?" I said, "No, I mean the American Revolution." Because, people don't think Black people have been here for, not forever, but for a very long time. We built this country. Our influence is long-reaching, and people don't think about it that way. I thought it was so funny that she immediately went to the Civil War, which, of course, is the war that was about slavery and where slavery was center stage. But that wasn't what we were talking about. I it had never occurred to me to even think about it that way. And when I read the play and I was doing all this research, I was like, oh, no, this makes sense. Black people, yet again, here's another situation where we were key to the success of this huge movement. And I just don't think that Black people are counted out all the time, and they're forgotten the impact that we've had. So it being in that, so yes, that it was that the play was written by a white woman, confused or gave people pause when they realized that, because I think you just assume that the only person that could tell that story. And now, look, obviously, I think that Black people should be telling their stories, but I think that Eleanor is so. I mean, I think that it says so much that a white person is able to, if you do your research, if you read, if you can be informed. She told this story beautifully, so well, and in a way that nobody else could have. And it made perfect sense. I mean, I would sit in the room and she was always so willing to listen to both of our takes and both of our opinions on what was going on. There was always a conversation, one about the larger things that were happening in the world around us as we were doing this play, but also about the history and about any questions that we had. She, was happy to answer. And if we had qualms, not that I ever really had qualms, because it was so well researched and so well articulated, but she wanted to listen. It was very much a conversation between the four of us. We were very much a team. I was very, very, very lucky to be there. For sure.
So that's awesome. And I saw that play and it was phenomenal. So what you just said, will get backlash. There will be people who will confront what you're saying, where it's you said this play couldn't have been written better by anyone else.
No, this play was Eleanor Burgess's play, and it came from her life experience and her mind and her heart. No, I don't think, no one else could have written the niceties better than Eleanor Burgess. And if a Black person wrote that play, it would be a different play. This play was written by this woman, and that's the person that needed to tell that story. I'm not saying that a Black person could have written a similar story and also have been wonderful, but it wouldn't have been the niceties. That came from Eleanor. That was Eleanor's brainchild. That's the only place it could have come from. Yeah.
So what's the significance of a play like that being written by a white person?
I mean, I think the significance of the play itself, it was just because when, the play ends up with these two women in a fairly heated argument, and they're two smart, brilliant, bright characters. So they were both well informed in what they were talking about. And they were able to say things that I don't think people, if you were having a real conversation, that you would feel comfortable saying, because, you have to remember it's a play, it's an elevated situation. You're up there on a stage and not in your living room talking about a friend, but the two characters are able to put aside the concern that they're hurting, the other person. And I think in common conversation, we're worried about, especially today, we're so worried about being politically correct and worried about not offending other people. And I think that if two people are able to sit down and have a conversation and just understand that neither person is trying to offend, neither person is coming into it with malicious intent, and then say, ask your questions, say your true thoughts, say the things that you're actually thinking, not the filtered thoughts that you can let out because you're like, okay, that's appropriate, that's acceptable, that will be accepted. I think we would get a little further. We could meet each other in the middle. Because, I think we have conversations and you have a question that maybe could get you further down the road, but you don't ask it because you're afraid that you'll offend the other person, that you're afraid the other person won't understand or they'll take it the wrong way. But if we felt a little more free to just say what we're feeling, I mean, and again, you have to be coming at it without a malicious intent. You have to really people have questions. Not everything that offends someone was meant to do that. Sometimes it's really just a true question. And if people could answer, if people could talk to each other without fear of retribution, I think we would be able to meet each other in the middle a little better, if that makes sense. If you have a good relationship with someone and you are able to sit down and have tough conversations and open up your experience and they open up theirs, you can find the similarities and then figure out, how the differences got you to where you are. So I strive at least to live my life that way.
I like that a lot. Let's start growing up. Like, what was your relationship like with your hair?
I think I've always had a bit of a contentious relationship with my hair. I mean, growing up in Ossining in Westchester, I think the norm, or what was seen as beautiful or pretty or cute or hot, was, straight hair, was long hair, was white hair. So that, I think I had that on one side. But the other thing, the real thing about me that I've realized as I've gotten older is I'm very much about the thing that is the least amount of work. I don't wear a lot of, in the profession that I'm in, I wear a lot of makeup when I'm working. So I don't wear makeup very often when I'm, just out in normal life. I like my hair to be I don't like to have to think about my hair. And I think I lamented when I was younger how much I had to think about my hair. My hair was a constant thought, and it required so much more work than my friend's hair did. Even if at the time, if when I was younger, I wasn't the one doing it. You're getting your hair done, or my mom was doing my hair for a long time, but it took time. It took time away from other things that I would rather be doing, and I think that was really hard for me to make my peace with. And I've come a long way, I think, now, but even still, I spent so long trying to figure out ways to not have to think about my hair. So, I spent all of high school and the beginning of college with my hair in braids, because braids, you get them. I mean, you spend 6 hours the day you get them, but then you spend a month having to do nothing. And it's amazing. And I can just roll out of bed and go wherever I want to. My hair is already done. I don't have to think about it. And so the first time I got braids, I was like, what? This seems to be like what I need to be doing. And I think for me, when I was little, I know that for me, it was always about having something to throw around.
What you mean, throw around?
I mean, white girls can throw their hair over their shoulder. White girls can flip their hair. And that looked fun. That looked like the thing that, so I remember, like, when I was really little, not even really little, probably till I was 10, 11, 12. My mom, when you started getting beads in your hair, and I was like, oh my God, my hair moves. Look at this. Swing it around. That was amazing. I was like, this is it. This is it. And then, beads kind of, you got to phase those out. You got to phase those out because those are, it's for little girls. Yes. Whatever. But then then you figure out you can get the braids without them, and you can get and then you figure out you can get extensions in your braids. And I was like, wait a minute, my hair can move and it can be long. This is it. So I had braids and I have braids right now actually for work. And it's, funnily enough, I have very, very long braids that are down my back, and they're beautiful. They look beautiful, and they wanted them for the play so that I could, for my specific hairstyle.
Let's explain that real quickly. How do they tell you that they want you to have a certain hairstyle? And then, like, you're telling me that you have had and kind of still have this complicated relationship with your hair. Like, Are you ever hesitant to be like, oh God, like, what do they want me to do? I mean,
absolutely. I was very apprehensive. So with the niceties, when I auditioned for the play, my hair was in braids because it was summer and I was going on vacation or something, and then they were so that was the way that they first saw me. And so that was just the style that we went with for the show. For this, when I auditioned, my hair was natural, which is how I've been wearing my hair for the past couple of years. And so a lot of the time in your contract, it'll say, you have to keep your hair the way that it was at your audition, unless they change their mind or, decide they want something else. So when we first started talking about what they wanted for my hair was still out. And I was like, I was stressed that they would say, we just want it like this. Like, this is great. Because that was, for a little bit, they were thinking that they were just going to have it out. And I was like, well, that is so much. I told them, I was like, whatever you want to do, whatever you guys decide is fine. But every style of my hair comes with some caveat. And this one being, if it's out, that's a lot of work for me. Outside of coming to work and doing the play, that also means that every night when I go home, I'm going to have to twist my hair up, or I'm going to have to, pineapple it, or do whatever the maintenance is for that night. It's just more work than, say, braids, which means, there's a day where I have to spend all day and probably miss a rehearsal to get my hair braided. But for me, it means that I get to go home at night and just go to bed, and I get to wake up in the morning and just wake up and go. So while I'm working it that also, that was a stress of mine, that I would have, that they would say, yeah, we're going to just have your hair out. And also that for a play, you're playing a character. So once they decide what your look is going to be, you want to get something very similar to that every night, because the character is you're playing, the same character every night. So I was like, it's very stressful for me to have to think that I'm going to have to get my hair in this one style of a twist out, or one style of whatever we decide that it's going to be, the same way every night. It's impossible, actually. It's never going to happen. Like, it's never going to look, if I'm left to my devices to make it happen, it's going to look different most days. So you guys should also be aware of that. And then they came to the decision that they were going to, that we were going to braid it, and so part of me was like, so part of me was relieved, because it meant less work. And then there's another part of me that's like, well, I've now done 2 professional plays with braids. So am I now the girl that has braids? Am I now always going to be the girl that has braids? I mean, because I've done 2 small appearances on TV shows, and in both of those, my hair was straight. And that was a choice that I made. So
Why'd you make that choice?
Because there's a part of me that thinks that straight hair, I think it's a part of me that is supported by our society, that straight hair is more palatable, straight hair is more acceptable. And when you go into an audition, I think that, they're looking at, they don't want to have to visualize all this extra other work that they're going to have to do. So when I go into an audition, you want to go in as, looking the way that they're going to see you look as the character. So when I go in for TV, and it's also about how I want to be perceived and how I want to be shown, on TV, I'm like, well, you can look back at this. People will be able to look back at this as I go along in my career and see this girl at 22, 20, whatever, and my hair is straight. It's more acceptable. It seems, and because it's more like white people, when my hair is straight, it's a style that white people, I think, can easily understand, because it looks like theirs, and it can go up, it can go down, you can do whatever you want, that it seems more easily worked with. And when you're working on TV sets, for the most part, I did the first time I was working, the wig and makeup people, or hair and makeup people, were white. The second time they were black, but even still, beforehand, I had gotten my hair straightened. I'd gotten my hair done. It was done, and it looked, finished, like it was the finished product. So I arrived with my hair already done, because I don't want to have to figure that out. I don't want to have to take time and one, figure it out, 2, stress about not knowing what to do with my hair, or you doing something crazy with my hair because you don't know how to deal with it.
As a tidbit, I for our senior musical, we did Hairspray, right? And
I did Hairspray in high school.
Yeah, so fun, right?
Everybody does Hairspray in high school.
Yeah, I remember it was Hairspray. Maybe it was something else. I think it was Hairspray. But anywho,
did you see it?
I don't even think I want to see it, but it'll come back around. So we were doing a play I'm sorry, I hate this. We were doing a play in high school. It was my senior year, our senior play, right? And I was an athlete. I was on the basketball team. So already I was like, this is out of my comfort zone, but like, I'm just gonna do it, right? And I went to all the rehearsals, did all the things. I didn't have a big part, like nothing like that. She's upset because I didn't tell her I was
What?
Yeah, okay.
What?
But I did that
in a play?
Okay, I literally got
I'm
down.
Gonna kill you later. What?
I got to like the first couple weeks, and then boom, it's the hair, makeup, costume, like shenanigan stuff, and like
shenanigans.
Like no shenanigans, time. It's hair. It's just not my thing.
Shenanigans is fine.
Shenanigans, great. So I'm sitting there. And they're talking about, how the girls can do their hair, how the guys should do their hair, how the girls should dress, how the guys should dress. The My Colorful Nana Project is all about, like, redefining terms like femininity, beauty, and then identifying blackness or defining it on your own terms, right? So in that moment, I didn't feel like very feminine. I didn't want to wear a dress like they suggested.
Right.
I didn't know how to straighten my hair or like what kind of hair they wanted me to have in the 70s. Whereas they were saying the girls just like, put your hair up in like 2 ponytails. My hair, it didn't do that. I had a weave at the time. It wasn't, even if I did do that, it would make no sense, right? Like there was no suggestion like, wear fro, like do something like that. Like that was never an option for me.
Right.
So I left the hair costume shenanigans, went to my car, cried, and then I quit the play.
That's horrible. That's just... Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'm very sorry that. I mean, but that's. I mean, I get it. I understand. And especially if it wasn't something for me, that's
not something I'm passionate about.
Right.
Yeah,
and so why go through that extra effort? Why put yourself through that?
What advice, if I had the level of passion that you have with acting and telling stories, wanting to find my place, right? And there's me after like going through that moment of like realizing this, like none of this is for me, right? I'm sitting in my car and I'm crying. Let's say you're right there next to me.
Yeah.
What advice would you have given me?
I mean, I say it's a play in the 60s. You go and look and figure out what black hair looked like in the 60s. What would your hair have looked like? So you go back in there and say, look, what you guys were talking about is not for me. There's no way that I can get there. You guys are on one road and I'm way over here on another one and the roads will not meet. But here I have these solutions to this problem. And it's not, and you know what? It shouldn't be your responsibility. It shouldn't have to be your job. It shouldn't have to fall on you to have to do more work than anybody else in order to just get to where they are. But I mean, it's the thing that people always say. You have to work twice as hard to get just as far and be twice as good to get just what they get. And that has always really resonated with me. So sometimes it is the fact of you have to do the extra work. In that moment, I say, okay, your hair isn't going to look like that. They said that they gave you all these options and none of them were for you. So what would your hair have looked like? And then you go back in and say, this is what I can do. Because sometimes you just have to make it easy, and it would be easy to get, it is easy to get mad, to get upset, to be hurt. And it is valid and you have every reason to feel those things. And I feel them all the time, but they don't serve, that doesn't serve you. That won't get you any further. It won't fix the problem. When you're crying in your car and the choice is walk away or do a little more work and go back in and say, I've fixed it for you. I've figured out how we're going to do this. Make that choice. Because then you get to be in the play. You get to do the thing that, if you are the person that's passionate about that, you get to follow your passion. You get to, in the end, have a wonderful time and do this great work. I love the work that I do. I love getting to tell stories, and sometimes that means that I have to work a little harder. I have to take a couple extra steps to get to the place that I want to be. But once I get there, I'm never upset that I did it. You shouldn't have to work that much harder. You shouldn't have to put in that much effort. But the fact of the matter is we do. And the sooner the sooner you make peace with that and the sooner you accept it, And you can fight on the other side to still say, I shouldn't have to do it. But in the interim, you still have to do it. You still have to work twice as hard.
What do you think is the importance of this work, what we're doing, having these conversations, pulling on topics like acting in relation to like opposite topics, just like about sports or anything, right?
I mean, I think I'm so proud of you for all the work that you've been doing. And I think the great thing about the My Colorful Nana project is that you've got people of all different walks of life, not just Black women, not just Black people, looking at this issue, talking about this issue in a way that is not really done in the grand scheme of things on a large scale. There's not a platform like this that I've come across, and there wasn't a platform like this when we were younger. I think, if I had heard more people, and not just Black people, I think that it's so important that you have people of other ethnicities, you have not just female identifying people, because if the world makes you feel like, for me, if the world makes you feel like you're not beautiful, or the world makes you feel like what you've got isn't beautiful, even if you're working so hard to love yourself, that's hard. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of it's a lot of pressure on you. I think it makes a difference to have people talking about your situation, people thinking about your situation, people seeing it a new light. So to have white people talking about Black hair is a big, in a positive way and in an inquisitive way and not in a judgmental way, is so important. I wish that when I was younger, there would have been more people that were interested as opposed to just, I think because sometimes it feels like just a base curiosity, like, that they want to pet you or look at you. You feel like a thing.
Yes.
You feel like you're a material possession that people can touch and feel they feel like they have the ability to question and all that kind of stuff. But I to be able to talk about it in depth and really bring a light to the fact that we're different, but it's just, at the end of the day, people say it's just hair, it's not that big of a deal. But for a little Black girl who sees nothing around her but different, sees nothing around her but what looks like ease and what looks like, light and fun, for me, it was just like, that looks like so much, just looks easier. But easier doesn't have to be better. And you can also find an easy way to work with what you've got, to love what you've got. So I think it's so important that you have people talking about it and that you have people learning about it in a way that they can take forward out into the world and incorporate into their own lives, with the people of color in their lives and with the people, with other white people in their lives, and say, okay, well, but listen, this is what I've learned. This is the things that I can now bring to you, and hopefully the next time you interact with a person about Black hair, you're able to have a little more of a informed perspective.
Thank you so much for being here, Jordan. It means so much to all of us. I'm sure everyone who's out there, and of course me. To all of you, thank you for thinking generously, and I hope to see you next month.